Part 1. It all started that day a few months ago when we had that really bad thunderstorm. I mean, really bad thunderstorm. You know, the kind that flares up at 4:30 p.m. and spawns tornadoes and leaves more than 150,000 people without electricity. Yeah, we get a lot of those in the Chicago area, except for the twisters. Those are a little bit further west. Anyway, it was a clear day, maybe 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was out with a bunch of my friends. Since I had attended public elementary and junior high schools, but am now attending a private high school, I had two different sets of friends. I happen to live in one of the not-so-great suburbs of Chicago. You know the kind. There's only one town between Chicago and us, and even though people say my city's bad, we call the town next to us the ghetto. You see, I live in the far northeast corner of the city, which is basically our ghetto. It's not a real ghetto, but it sucks, in our part of the city where all the shop windows have Spanish-English displays. No one seems to know how to speak anything but Spanish. There's graffiti. There are gangs, and might I add that our public high school district is one of the larger ones in the state, since both towns join districts. But I wouldn't have it any other way. That all changed a few months ago. This is how that day unfolded and how I became Jenna. Names are changed to protect the innocent. I woke up at about 8:30 to an 18-wheeler going over the bump in the road in front of our house. If that didn't wake me up, the construction crews would've, since they were completely redoing one of the busiest streets in the area. I had forgotten about the plans my friends and I made last night. Me, John, Sly, Mike, Pablo, Andy and Jenna. John, Sly and Mike were friends from grade school, Jenna, Pablo, and Andy were from high school. Surprisingly, they all got along. I got dressed in a white t-shirt that had the Chicago Wolves hockey team logo on the front, long, baggy jean shorts, my USA hat, and my shoes. I had a few Pop-Tarts for breakfast. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, and took a long piss. That's what you get when you have a 3-liter RC the night before. I thought to myself as I zipped up. I checked my face and hair in the mirror. I was 15, at 5'8" tall, with a sort of freckly face, blue eyes, red hair, braces, and a bad comb-over haircut. A little more hair on my legs and it would have looked like I had two Chewbaccas as legs. My sideburns were full, and even though there's a strict dress code at my high school prohibiting burns longer than the earlobe, I got away with them being about 3 inches longer than that. And I had a beard when I didn't shave for a week. Oh yeah, and I pulled my second hernia the week before, or as I like to call it, literally busting a gut. I'm a joker when it comes to my physical problems. But seriously, I'd have rather had a freckly face than the huge, painful, embarrassing pustules known as cystic acne that I had only a few months earlier. I had mild acne since 2nd grade, and full-blown acne since about 5th grade. That's right, I was an Irish boy on the outside, but I had 7 other backgrounds in my blood. The British in me gave me the horrible teeth. John is a slacker/hockey nut, Sly is an aggressive skater/bass player, Mike is an aggressive skater/smoker, Pablo is a political activist/pothead, Andy is a defender of the old ways/redneck, I'm a slacker/aggressive skater/video game nut, and Jenna, well, Jenna's none of the above. Since I met her as a freshman, I thought she was at least attractive if not hot. She's very easy to talk to, she is funny, and she will also give you a piece of her mind. Okay. Since that's clear, I'll continue. It was the second day of a 4-day weekend. Since I was going to a Catholic school, they cared about us enough to give us homework over the weekend. Lousy bastards. God, I can't stand that school. I had homework in chemistry, which there were only 2 sophomore honors classes, me in one of them, geometry, which I failed both quarters first semester but still pulled off a C for the semester grade because I did over perfect on the final 102%, Spanish, might as well learn to speak what 85% of my peers speak, and English, the 8 biggest goofballs of our grade in my class. What could be better? Not. Since 98% of the teachers are assholes, it figures. Since it was a 4-day weekend, I did what any red-blooded American teen would do, and I decided I would wait until the last day to do it. That said, I was just about to play Perfect Dark when the phone rang. I picked up. It was Jenna. Hi JK, it's Jenna. Just letting you know that I'll be there in 20 minutes. So be ready, okay? It was only then that I remembered our plans. I called my mom at work to let her know I was going out, and she said she'd pick me up at Jenna's since it's on the way home from work. I had to call her when I got to Jenna's because my mom didn't know how late she was working. I said okay, see you later, hung up and got $50 for lunch and whatnot. Soon, Jenna came in her new black Ford Explorer that she gotten for her 16th birthday. I noticed that she had already picked everyone else up. We embarked on what would be our journey to the largest shopping complex in the area, which was 45 minutes away. Jenna was Italian, through and through. Well, I was part Italian, at least. She had wavy shoulder blade-length brown hair with small blonde highlights. She was an inch or so shorter than me. She had a slightly more protruding nose than most girls, some freckles on her face, hey, the Irish aren't the only ones with freckles, you know, and her skin was slightly darker than your average white person's skin. She was a girl that didn't look either like Kate Moss or the proverbial fat lady. Her waist was 27-inch, and I thought it was nice that at least some girls aren't starving themselves. The one thing I couldn't help but think about are her wrists. They are narrow compared to the size of her arm. It's like she had a 16-year-old's arm and a 7-year-old's wrist. Today she was wearing a purple shirt, black flare-leg polyester pants, and sneakers, besides the bra and all that, and her hair was in a ponytail. When we got there, we pulled into a parking space that was 2 blocks away from the entrance. We were all sort of pissed because we had to walk so far just to get into the damn place. First order of business was to play mini golf. That took a long time, since we all suck at golf and since the 2 people in front of us were somehow slower than 7 of us. That made what should have been an hour game into a 2-hour epic. Some putts were great, stopping inches from the cup, while most ended up only a few feet from where we tee off since we hit them so hard. The sad thing is that we were actually trying to play. We were actually so slow that a group behind us went to the course manager and threatened to get us kicked off the course. No one cared who won, it was a hilarious game. The game ended at 12:30. Once the game ended, we decided to get something to eat. There were many different types of restaurants, ranging from Chinese to Italian to Southern barbecue to McDonald's. Since McDonald's was literally less than half a block from my house, I decided to get some Southern cooking. Everyone else just got Mickey D's. About a half hour later, we went to the arcade. Being the video game fanatic that I was, I beat them at just about everything. Racing games, fighting games, tank combat games, skee-ball, even foosball, table soccer, I whomped them. They even had a racing game that you could race against 10 people at once, so we all raced against each other. John won, 'cause he spun me out and I crashed into the wall and blew up. We must have done 50 different games and that didn't cover half the games there. It was about 4 o'clock when Pablo noticed the sky ain't clear anymore. Andy agreed and said we'd better head home, those clouds look like Daddy's head run over by a tank. Now, Daddy is what our speech teacher calls himself, and he was one homely-looking man to begin with. The rest of us argued with them for a few minutes, until we looked out the window on the second floor. To the west the sky was extremely dark, and it was heading this way fast. We hightailed it out of there and ran to the car. I said to John, "Hey, just like on our 8th grade field trip. Remember?" He said, "Dude, shut up. This looks worse than that. At least this time we have a heads up and we're not standing 500 feet from where lightning struck." He was right. That lightning strike 2 years earlier was terrifying. To think that only a minute before we were over where the lightning struck. It was literally 500 feet from where we were standing. As Jenna started the car, John, Sly, and I were looking at the storm approaching. "Holy shit, dude, I seriously don't like the looks of this," John said. As he said that, Jenna turned on the radio. The announcer was on the air. "The storm is heading southeast at 45 miles per hour. It has a history of producing hail, a lot of cloud-to-ground lightning, flash floods of 2 inches or more per hour, winds of up to 70 miles per hour or higher, and funnel clouds. McHenry County's under a tornado warning until 4:45. Lake, DuPage, Kane, Cook, and Kankakee counties are all under tornado watches until 8 p.m. tonight. As always, stay away from." Jenna was doing 75 miles per hour in a 55 zone. All of us, except Jenna, looked at one another in terror. We knew this was going to be bad, and we were going to be in the middle of it. Mike told Jenna, "Floor it and get us home ASAP." "But what if I get a ticket?" "We'll pay for it." "Now move it." We took the expressway back. We dropped everyone in order of how far they lived from Jenna's. Andy, Mike, Pablo, John, Sly, in that order. By the time we got to John's house, it was everything the radio guy said, except the winds were only about 20 miles per hour. I asked her when her mom was getting home, and she said she was on a business trip and wouldn't be back for another week. A few minutes later, we were pulling into the driveway when Jenna yelled out, "Shit. I forgot our garage door isn't working, it's jammed shut. I'll have to park it on the street." She backed out and pulled up along the curb. The winds looked a little stronger, about 25 miles per hour. We got out of the car and ran as fast as we could. Boy, was I wrong, the winds were 45 miles per hour. The rain was almost horizontal. We couldn't open our eyes more than an 1/8 inch without it feeling like nails hit our eyes. I had this experience before at the theme park. It was raining so hard we could barely see 15 feet in front of us. Unfortunately, there was no protection until we got to the front entrance of the house, so we were soaked. Actually, by the time we got inside, I would have been better off being tossed into a swimming pool with my clothes on. I was that wet. And I had nothing to change into. Jenna walked swiftly up the large staircase in the center of the foyer. Jenna and I had been friends for almost 2 years, and this was the first time I'd actually been in her house. It was huge. It was the biggest house I'd ever been in. Not really knowing what to do, I headed toward her living room with their 44-inch flat-screen TV. "Hey Jenna, got any towels or something I can dry off with?" "Sure, come upstairs and I'll get you one." So, I went upstairs and went through the hallway until I found her. She handed me a long aqua green towel. As I was shutting the bathroom door, she handed me some clothes and said, "Give me your stuff. I'll throw it in the dryer. You can wear some of my stuff so you're not holding that towel for an hour or so." I looked at her kind of funny, my expression one of what the hell? I wanted to protest, saying I don't cross-dress, but I decided she had a valid point. And I realized I ought to be grateful for her nice gesture. "Don't laugh, you'd have done the same thing." She explained to me that her parents are divorced, and her dad hasn't lived there in more than 5 years. I asked if she had a brother my size, and she said no, she only had a sister who's in college. I dried off, and at that time looked at what she gave me. I had a black girls' basketball practice t-shirt, a pair of flare-leg jeans with a 26-inch flare, your typical white socks, and Doc Martens shoes with 1.5-inch soles. I put the shirt on, and put on everything else. Damn, I look weird, I thought when I looked in the mirror. It didn't help seeing a huge bulge in the crotch. I was so embarrassed I was turned on. I wasn't all that surprised that the pants and shoes fit, because I fit my 30-inch waist into smaller-waisted jeans before, and I fit my size 10.5 US feet into size 5 US shoes. I got out of the bathroom and walked down the stairs. It felt strange walking in skin-tight pants at first, but I got used to it. Soon I found a phone, and I called my mom. She wouldn't be leaving until almost 7. It was about 5:15 now. I finished the conversation and hung up. I called out, "Hey Jenna, where are you?" A few seconds later I heard a sneeze, followed by it in the kitchen. I knew where that was, and made my way there. All of a sudden it hit me, she never showed me the way to the kitchen. When I got there, I found her eating a sandwich. Now she was wearing a white baby doll tee, what looked like gray pajama bottoms, and her hair was in no particular style, just long. Jenna looked at me and burst out in laughter. I blushed. She looked away for a few seconds and calmed down. Then Jenna looked back at me and cracked up again. She stopped abruptly and sized me up. "Hey, did you put on one of my mom's wigs?" I told her no. "Then how is your hair shoulder length? And brown? What the hell are you talking about?" "It's not." I looked over my shoulder. It was long, wavy and brown. And highlights were forming, exactly like Jenna's. She pointed at me and shouted, "Holy shit! Look! Your beard is gone. Even your sideburns. The hell is going on?" I took a look at her and gazed in horror. "They're not gone, you got them. And your hair is short and red like mine. Crap! We're becoming each other. But how?" Part 2. Neither of us could believe what was happening. How, or why, this was happening, we don't know even to this day. I saw her skin slowly becoming paler, and I ran to the foyer and looked in the extra-wide full mirror. My skin was darkening. I called to Jenna out there. She looked in next to me. As my skin darkened, hers lightened. The change was moving from head to toe. My eyebrows warped to match her old ones, and vice versa. I felt my skin tightening, and my facial structure was shifting. So was hers. It didn't hurt either of us. As I blinked once, my eyelashes grew and my eye color changed to brown. My ears changed, then my nose, and then my mouth. It was weird, my braces vanished. My teeth were in perfect alignment. I had the mouth I've always dreamed of having. Poor Jenna. She was getting the bad end of the change. I was so glad to finally have a different face. But that meant she had mine. Jenna started crying. I frankly couldn't blame her. Soon, our necks changed, and all of a sudden I was wearing a necklace. My Adam's apple did not change instantly, however. As I talked to her, trying to comfort her, the pitch in my voice slowly crept higher. I went from having an extremely deep voice to a 12-year-old's, to a 9-year-old's, to a 7-year-old's, and it regressed until I didn't have any voice. I was physically incapable of producing any sound from my voice box. Jenna tried talking to see if she could, and she couldn't either. For some reason, the transformation stalled at our necks. Within a minute, I was able to talk at a 16-year-old's voice, but it was Jenna's. Her throat bulged out as my Adam's apple became hers. This was too much for her to take. She passed out. I almost wanted to faint, but the curiosity kept me going. Once our voices switched, the transformation slowly crawled down our bodies. Her shoulders, arms, hands, and wrists became mine. Then I got 34C boobs, and I was also wearing a bra. I couldn't believe that, or the fact that I no longer had any trace of my hairy body up to that point. All I had was scarce, very faint peach fuzz. Up to the transformation line, my body had Jenna's figure, below it, mine. My stomach flattened out, smoothed, and lost all its hair. I now had an innie instead of an out tie. I now had Jenna's head, upper limbs, and upper body, and I had on that shirt. I could feel everything shifting around inside, and it was making way for the last major change. I looked down and saw me continue to receive Jenna's figure. I saw my waist narrow, and my hips widen. When I saw my hips widen, I knew what was next. I watched as that bulge in the pants disappeared, and I looked at my ass and saw it fill in the jeans. I also had when I said it felt weird walking in skin-tight pants earlier, there was still some slack in the back of the leg. Not anymore. My legs were completely changed, and the jeans I was wearing became those pajama bottoms I had on panties now, too. My ankles changed, and then my feet narrowed and shrunk a few sizes. That was it. I was now Jenna, inside and out. I looked at the real Jenna, still out of it. She was now me, and I was right, I did look weird. I tried carrying her to the sofa, but as Jenna I could not pick my old self up, so I dragged her to the couch and propped her up against it. By this time I went and took our clothes out of the dryer and brought them up. I changed into what she was wearing before we got drenched, the purple tee and the black polyester flares. While she was out, I put my old clothes on her. It was just about 6:30 when Jenna came to. She rubbed her eyes and looked at what she was wearing. Then she saw me. As her. F***CK, JK. I can't believe this is for real. I mean, I'm actually you, but I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. She was still visibly upset. Wait a sec, I'm starting to remember some stuff, like the time that a bunch of us were standing in the rain, trying to figure out where to go, when we saw some very bright lightning, she said. I looked at her peculiarly. Of course you remember that I mentioned that to John earlier. And, I think I'd better start calling you JK and you call me Jenna. I said. Jenna shook her head. No, you don't understand, I can picture it exactly how it happened. JK. Jenna, I'm getting your memories. All of a sudden, I remembered making a three-pointer to win the game and advance the team into the girls' basketball state semifinals. JK. If this is happening, do you think that soon neither of us will never remember being each other? I worriedly asked. I don't think we'll forget who we were. And if we do, we do. Part 3. JK went home and the storm cleared. I had the whole house to myself. For a week. Even though I now knew where everything was, I went exploring, just to see it in person. I went in the basement. There are 2 rooms down there, a laundry room and a lounge room with a pool table, bar, and a dartboard. I played a game of 301 and beat it in 12 rounds instead of my old 22. I also tried my hand at pool. Again, I was much better now than before. Next, I headed to the kitchen to see exactly what kind of stuff I ate. After I rummaged through everything, I found mostly Italian food, but there were hamburgers, frankfurters, some leftover Chinese, and a lot of frozen beef and chicken. Thank God I'm not a vegetarian, I thought. I also found no trace of diet or diet caffeine-free soda. For those of you that don't drink a lot of pop, regular is the best, caffeine-free is good, diet is bad, and diet caffeine-free doesn't taste remotely close to what it's supposed to. I grabbed a Coke, TMCR, and drank a bit of it. I walked into the living room like I did earlier and checked out the system. 44-inch flat-screen HD TV, Dolby Digital 6.1, a very high-quality DVD player, a VHS player, and now it appears I owned a PlayStation. Satisfied with the boob tube and its friends, I made my way upstairs to the bedrooms. I checked out my mom's room. It was huge. Next, I turned around and headed to the spare bedroom, my sister's old room. I thought of some memories I had with her, and how I missed her. All that was in there were a bed, some old dressers, and an unplugged alarm clock on a nightstand. That left only one more room, mine. Jenna apparently shut the door earlier, so I stood outside my room with anticipation. I breathed in, opened the door, and burst inside. It was painted a light pink salmonish color, and there were posters and photos all over the wall. Posters of NSYNC, Britney Spears, Papa Roach, Limp Bizkit lined were placed sporadically throughout the room. There were all-girl magazines like YM and Teen Beat and all that, and as I looked through I realized that all the magazine clippings were from these mags. I didn't want to see my new clothes until tomorrow, so I bypassed that and went to music. As JK, my selection consisted of alternative and the Star Wars soundtracks, with Spears, Brandy, and James Bond themes thrown in. As Jenna, it consisted of boy bands like NSYNC, girl groups like Destiny's Child, rap rock like Roach and Bizkit, rap, and some pop rock like Vertical Horizon. As JK, I would have found pop tolerable at best and leaned away from rap. But, as Jenna, that changed. Soon, I found myself listening to a sappy love song and singing along. It was 11 o'clock. I was exhausted, so I changed and went to bed. 3 days later, I woke up to my alarm clock. I shut it off and lay back in bed. I rubbed my eyes and said, "Not school already." I made some Pop-Tarts and washed and brushed. Then I went to get dressed. It was only then that I remembered the dress code blouses and skirts for girls. The old part of me was in shock I was actually going to have to wear that. The new part of me made nothing of it. I got dressed, grabbed my makeup, lipstick, blush, eyeshadow, mascara, and the keys, and started driving over to school in my new Explorer. I thought of JK. Today would be the first day I saw him since the switch. I also realized that he was probably going to be pissed because he couldn't drive anymore. Good thing we were in geometry and speech together. My first class was health. That dragged on, especially since it was the same person I had the year before. The teacher went over STDs for the class. Yawn. Biology came next. I forgot that day we were dissecting an earthworm. As JK, my lab partner and I breezed through the experiment and got extra credit for leaving the brain intact. Today wasn't that easy. I felt sick the whole class but thankfully made it through. When that ended it was on to my favorite subject, geometry. At this point in the year, Jenna was in risk of failing the quarter. As I walked into class, I saw JK sitting in his usual seat. We acted like nothing ever happened, but I whispered in his ear, "Don't tell anyone anything about what happened. And just be yourself." He said okay. I looked over my shoulder. Louis and Mark were sick. Michelle, Maggie, and Amy were all on vacation together, so that left JK and me pretty much alone in our part of the class. Before class started, I told him the stuff from earlier, and also asked him if he was picking up my old memories and habits, and he said yes. It's weird. I'm both brand new at some things, but yet I've been doing them for years. And now I love skating aggressively. I told him that it was true for me too, and that I had my license even though I wasn't supposed to be taking driver's ed until summer. And I loved all the music I barely even liked before. Geometry raced through today. My locker is a few down from JK's, so when he stopped at his locker he said, "Don't forget you have a speech due today." Oh shit. It's our how to speech, as in how to do something. Even worse, you have to show how to do it. Damn it! Jenna got out of giving either of them. I gave mine last week on skating basics, how to go forward, backward, turn, and brake. We have a tile floor, so I was able to do my exhibition. Now I'm stuck doing one on how to apply makeup. There are a lot of girls in the room, but Jenna isn't real good friends with them, so of all people she asked me to be her dummy. I agreed. Now, I'm applying the makeup on him. This is going to be weird, I thought while I was preparing my tools. As JK took a seat in the front of the class, I started my introduction. I said that this is the exact same stuff I was wearing right now, and that I would be applying it to JK. If I had my old speech skills, I would have blown some of the body of the speech, but it was easy now. I continued talking and applying makeup at the same time. I put everything on beautifully. He looked weird, but the makeup looked how it should. He was able to wash off when the speech was done. When speech was done, he met up with me in the hall. I felt sorry for you. You gave 2 speeches, and on this one you technically had no clue what you were talking about. But before I wiped it all off, I looked at what you did. And I was truly impressed. You're good at being you, he said. I went to my next class. Listen, why don't you come over to my house after school? We need to talk. I asked. Sure. I'll meet you in the parking lot. Well, 2 hours later, school let out. I was standing outside the car waiting for JK. When he arrived, we got in and drove off to my old house. I had him change out of his uniform while I waited in the car. A few minutes later, he came out. So, what's up? He asked. Not now. When we get to my house, I told him. At the house, JK went into the living room and turned on the TV. I changed into a black halter top and a pair of shorts. I came down the stairs and walked into the room. He gazed at me and gasped. Wow. I asked him, what? It's just weird seeing myself through someone else's eyes. I sat down on the couch. Same here. But this is what I wanted to talk to you about. How we should act. Oh, and I can't thank you enough for being cool with the speech thing, I gratefully spoke. No problem. In fact, I was curious as to see how good of a job you'd do. Apparently you had no trouble, he said. I became more serious. See, that's my problem, sort of. I'm doing all these things I've never done before, but they're second nature now. Like the music. I could barely stand NSYNC as JK, but now I'm singing word for word sappy love songs I hated 3 days ago. And I have all your mannerisms, your style of talking, your walk, smile, laugh. Those posters in my room even turn me on. Part of me finds that absolutely nauseating, but part of me also finds nothing wrong with it. I'm so confused. He looked at me longingly, as if pleading to get back inside what is now my body. I looked away, and I didn't know why. You know, Jenna, when you were putting on the makeup earlier, I was so nervous of getting in front of everyone. Being your dummy made it worse. I felt queasy about it before I even left for school. Now I know you weren't lying when you said you wanted to puke all those times in geometry the days of your speeches. For God's sake, Daddy should give me like a friggin' no more speech guarantee. I remember wanting to do talent shows, but Kevin Taylor and his, cronies were just merciless in their teasing. Jesus, you've gone through all this shit and you're still this strong mentally? I can see the real reason why you don't want to try out for any teams. You think you'll be scrutinized by the whole student body. You've been traumatized. Even Paul criticizes everything I do, and he's our brother. Yeah, there's supposed to be some annoyance from a younger brother, but this is awful. I can also remember Victor, our best friend, claiming you called him a spick when you know you didn't, and he tried to get you to fight him. I can't help but think that had you fought him, he would have had his gang buddies beat the living hell out of you. You know, Jenna, you should be thankful for this switch. You've endured 15 years of bullshit and my life has been so easy. You deserve a lifetime break. I'll take over from here. He said. I started crying. I wanted to cry for so long as JK, but now someone knew exactly what I did, so I just let go. I cried for almost 45 minutes. All I could muster was a weak thank you. Oh, yeah, Dad's taking us next weekend. What should I do? I was resting my head on his shoulders. I looked up at him and said, all I can say is resist the urge to go nuts on him. Oh my God. It's 5:30. I'll bring you home. We got into the Explorer and left. Well, now that you know the story, I was guessing it was the clothes that did the switch, but a few days later I knew they weren't, because that's my spare set if I have someone over and they get wet like I did, they wear that outfit. But it seems I was the only person it happened to.